Today on the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement podcast, the astrology for the week, which packs a punch with the upcoming Pisces full moon lunar eclipse. But before we get there, I want to talk about this week's most important energy, which is Mars coming into Cancer and how it is influencing your passion, but also your warrior like energies from within right before we hit this eclipse. We're also going to be looking at our generational healing segment, specifically what brain and breath have to do with generational healing. There's a connection here. We're going to look at how your brain is a quantum processing machine and how we can use breath to rewire and heal body, mind, and spirit from these generational patterns that do not serve us. We'll also look at this week's tarot, of course, the ancestral guidance of the week, insights specifically on recent material and financial accomplishments, which are going to get you super excited, and also what you need to do here in the present and in the future in order to integrate your past success with your current incredible growth. So, welcome, beautiful sisters, to the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement podcast. We have so much to cover today, so let's get right to it. So, first and foremost, let's look at the astrology for the week. I'm telling you, astrology is like so accurate and so specific. And this week literally paints a picture of this like in between we're all in, of a week before the full eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse, as well as this beautiful fall equinox portal that is also opening to really usher us into a brand new era. So I'm not going to go deep into the full moon lunar eclipse. Next week's podcast episode on Monday, I will be sharing all the details on how to prepare, but I want to start giving you a bit of a glimpse so that you can understand what's happening this week, because without understanding these energies, you can feel really foggy, confused, very anxious, because we all know as it is, full moons create this higher anxiety within us because we're mostly made of water, right? But when you're talking about a lunar eclipse, it's like on steroids. And that's why a lot of us can actually start to feel kind of like these sensations of something big happening, even a week, 2, 3 weeks before, and especially even 2, 4, 6 weeks afterwards. As we are coming around the corner of this eclipse, we're entering into this period of heightened emotions, of intuition, especially being that this eclipse is in the sign of Pisces and also the North Node, meaning where are you going, your future, meaning you're closing out cycles so that you can keep evolving and moving forward to what your soul is here to do. And in the sign of Pisces, this hasn't occurred since September 17th, 18th, 1987, 1989, and then it happened again in 2006 to 2008. So this is an eclipse cycle that we haven't seen for a while. And Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So it represents all of these endings, spiritual connection. It is the shaman of the zodiac. So there's dissolution of boundaries, even as it relates to the physical and the spiritual. As we approach this eclipse, what you're going to start to feel is like very sensitive, very empathetic, very intuitive, maybe even overwhelmed if you don't know how to channel that energy. This eclipse is basically asking all of us to release what no longer serves us, because if you don't release it, it's going to be eclipsed out of your life. Eclipses are very, very karmic. And when it comes to this eclipse, we're talking about areas that are especially related to your emotional and your spiritual well-being. We're going to talk about patterns of generational neglect in the second segment here today. So really, this is a time for major introspection, for being prepared to let go, and also to prepare for us for new beginnings, because this eclipse is very fated. It's very, very part of your destiny. So we are all heading to a different direction, whether we like it or not. Many of us are just not aware. And the whole thing about it is that before we get to this eclipse, we're feeling the energies of this very interesting, not bad or good, transit of Mars entering into Cancer, which just started last week on September 4th. Last week, there was so much happening in the astrology that we didn't even talk about Mars entering Cancer, because Pluto going retrograde into Capricorn was a big deal. Then we had the new moon also in Virgo. Then we also had Uranus going retrograde as well. So it's like Mars Cancer kind of took like a second like a secondary position in the importance. But now, as we move closer to the eclipse, you can feel that energy a lot more in its potency. And we have to remember, and especially for my friends that are cancers in this world, we got to be extra gentle to our Cancer friends right now because they're moving through a lot, just as much as our Capricorn friends. But Cancers are also being impacted by the Pluto return to Capricorn, very much so. But with this Mars and Cancer energy, even more, like at a really, really big level where there's, this is all about emotions and home and nurturing. And as you create, bring together Mars, the planet of passion, warlike, spiritual warrior, right? And you got Cancer, the mother, feminine figure. Together, it's like this protective energy. Like we just want to protect, we want to protect ourselves, we want to protect our children, our homes. There's like this deep feeling that you want to ensure safety and the well-being of your loved ones, which is awesome because it's kind of like having like this fierce guardian that's watching over your emotional realm. But it can also be overwhelming for those people that don't know how to channel the energy because you can be very worried. You can feel like something big is happening or like the other shoe is going to drop. You can feel very warlike if you're protective, like a lioness protects her cubs. Anybody gets near her cubs or her babies, what's going to happen? She's going to attack, right? We need to be very careful with this energy because that could happen if we're not using our intuition. And also, ultimately, if we don't realize that we're always protected by God. If you still are relying on your own strength and you don't realize that God is always within you and you don't have a connection with God, then this Mars Cancer transit this week, especially right before the eclipse, is going to have you very overwhelmed, very freaked out, very paranoid, even. And that's even more true because during this Mars opposition, Mars is positioned at this critical point between the nodes of the moon. Every eclipse we have basically the north and south node of the moon being somehow impacted. This full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces is being impacted in the north node. So where we're going, right? But with Mars in Cancer positioned at this very critical point between the nodes of the past and the future, what it's doing, it's like amplifying these feelings of we're at a turning point in our lives. This is the crossroads. It's like there's this one path that's leading to our past and another one that's leading to our future. Are you going to repeat the lessons from the past? Are you going to stay on those generational karmic patterns? Or are you going to finally respond differently? Because right now, with this north node energy of the future, we're all being pushed to fulfill our potential and to embrace these new beginnings, especially because we haven't had a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces for such a long time. So this Mars in Cancer is now working to basically support you and support your mission. It's helping you and being encouraged to take action that aligns with your true self. Mars, passion, right? Fulfillment. And as Mars stays in Cancer for a while, actually, it's kind of like an extended stay. It's going to be in Cancer till November 4th, and then it leaves for a little bit, but then it comes back from January to April 19th of 2025. And that's its retrograde period. So that's more like the inner journey when it goes there. But this prolonged influence, I feel like it's giving us an ample amount of time to work with this energy. We just have to be very cognizant and aware that Mars in Cancer is offering us a unique opportunity to address and heal generational trauma. Because the protective nature of Cancer combined with the action oriented energy of Mars, it's basically helping us confront and transform these deep seated emotional patterns that are inherited from our ancestors. So during this time and right before the eclipse, you might be experiencing, or you might find yourself feeling way more protective of your home, of your family, and emotional well being. So, how do you respond to that? Not worrying, because if you're worrying, now you're creating a negative prayer for your family. So, you need nervous system stabilization, regulation. That's what meditation is. We're going to talk about breath today in the brain so you can understand it. But you need that inner work because worrying is only going to add to the overwhelmment of your emotions and you're going to feel depleted. And in fact, if you're on constantly worrying because you feel something bad's gonna happen, you're gonna continue to experience this strong urge to protect yourself, which can be good, meaning I'm protecting myself from my own mind. But if you're creating boundaries and barriers to protect yourself from something outside there, that's very dangerous. You are also going to be really forced to confront your past emotional issues, especially as it relates to family dynamics. And you're going to be maybe forced to make decisions that are going to significantly impact your future, especially during this eclipse. So now you might be feeling torn between the comfort of the familiar life you had and the call of new opportunities. That's why we are in our community, the Sovereign Sisterhood Academy, my group coaching program for generational healing. We've been on this journey of 40 days of inner child activation, releasing the identity of a wounded inner child, because childhood trauma is the most common generational pattern that gets passed down from lineage to lineage to lineage. I mean, generation to generation to generation to generation between the lineages. So we're working on these 40 days of activating the inner child, the divine inner child, so that it can merge with the inner work that we're doing with Kundalini Yoga meditation and A Course in Miracles with our highest self. And then on September 22nd, which is our fall equinox, we're going to be hosting a workshop. It's a rites of passage ceremony where we are moving through the three processes of the rites of passages, which is meaning initiation into a new life, which is grief. We just did a whole coaching call on grief as it relates to generational healing, which all of the women in my community, both communities, and Satori as well, which is the beginning starting point of the generational healing journey where women start. We're moving through this process of grief, of grieving an old self dying, an old life. And now we're moving into grace and gratitude. Those are the three components of these very powerful rites of passage ceremonies that our ancient ancestors always performed, and we all need them, like a quinceañera or a bar mitzvah. These are marks in our timeline where we have taken a quantum leap into a new era. And when you create these rites of passage ceremonies through these very epic transits and inner work that you're moving through, it really does create the differentiation between that old self and the new and the authentic you. That's why a lot of the times without these rites of passages, we keep going back to the old patterns over and over again. So as we navigate these very intense energies, this astrological weather, as we get closer to this Pisces full moon and Mars being in Cancer, stirring up these deep emotions, pushing us toward growth, it's important for you to slow down, self-care, and to listen to your intuition. Do not, this is not the time for you to be afraid of letting go of what no longer serves you. And if it's difficult for you, which we're going to talk about right now, how you can change patterns immediately, if it's difficult for you, to calling upon a higher power. With this full moon lunar eclipse coming up being in Pisces, the incredible dreams, intuition, the synchronicities. Oh my God, that's how we were talking about in our community sadhana this morning. Just the incredible amount of synchronicities that you know that you're being guided by God. They're there for all of us right now. You just have to learn to really ask the bigger questions. Are you creating from a place of your heart? Are you taking steps to make your life safer and more fulfilling, not from an external standpoint, but from an internal, meaning your mind? Does your body feel like a safe home to live in? And if it doesn't, what are the things that you're going to need to do, like releasing trauma or all these other things that have to happen, like changing your nervous system, regulating it, rewiring your brain in order for you to come back home to you? That's what the theme is this week, and that's what's going to lead us into next week's full moon lunar eclipse. And overall, as you'll see with this week's reading and guidance, it's about surrendering to God, to a higher power. Pisces energy, oh my God, naturally aligns with the concept of surrender, of dissolving egoic boundaries, physical and spiritual boundaries. So what this eclipse is going to do is going to create a powerful opportunity to merge individual consciousness with universal consciousness, with God. That's why we're doing that rites of passage, where we're going from that inner child identity of woundedness to merging with our higher self, because the inner child and the higher self is the same. And through this full moon, influence, lunar eclipse, remember it's ruled by Neptune, Pisces. Our ability to connect with God and with these higher realms is going to be majorly enhanced. So, from my perspective as a Kundalini yoga therapist, surrendering to God this week is key, and it involves profound energetic transformation that can heal generational traumas. That's what we're going to talk about right now, and alter these epigenetic expressions. So this process is going to help you rewire the brain and the nervous system so you can take these quantum leaps of healing, not just for you, but for 7 generations before and after you. So incredible week. Mars in Cancer, upcoming full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 17th. And next week, as we get on the Monday episode, I'll be talking and breaking down everything you need to know about this full moon lunar eclipse. So prepare for that. Mark your notifications. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel here so that you'll be notified when that episode goes live. It'll be going live on Monday, which means the lunar eclipse is going to be on a Tuesday, and you'll have ample amount of time to actually prepare. For this week, make sure you're watching out with that Mars Cancer energy, your passions, and how it is that you're expressing yourself. So now that we've explored the cosmic influences, the astrology of the week, this very, very powerful week, let's now dive into this week's generational healing topic. And specifically, I want to explore how our brain and breath work together to break generational patterns. So I want to really, really dissect both the science and the spirituality behind this, because this is, if you only knew how powerful you were in healing yourself, you would never be afraid of being sick or of never healing again. You really wouldn't. And this week is a very appropriate time for us to talk about breath as literally a bridge to healing generational patterns of emotional neglect. And I want to start by looking at this mind-bending concept about the brain. That's a lot of the things that, as a Kundalini yoga therapist and going through this program at the Guru Ramdas Center for Humanology to finish my degree as a Kundalini yoga therapist, which is it's a 2 to 3 year process, and it does require clinical studies. So being in a clinical setting, using actual data, which is very, very not only professional, but it also helps me bring the science to what it is that we're talking about. And a lot of the teachings in my classes are, it feels like I'm a doctor in there, because we're learning about the brain and all the different aspects of the brain, the nervous system. The gut, the meridian lines, which are connected to all the organs. So we're learning the spiritual energetics of our body, mind, and spirit, but we're also learning the science behind it, which is fascinating. Because growing up, I always wanted to be a therapist, but when I found out that basically they're just like pharmaceutical salespeople, I was like, that does not resonate. I will not spend my time or money in learning these things when this is nothing that even comes close to what my belief systems tell me, because my journey was always about healing holistically. And then I found Kundalini yoga found me, and then I found out that Kundalini yoga had a program to become a therapist. I was like, are you kidding me, God? Thank you, Lord. So I'm a geek about that stuff. I'm a geek about the brain and the nervous system, and I really enjoy it. And today I want to share with you some mind-bending concepts that relate to the brain, how powerful it is to heal you and for you to heal yourself, and what it has to do with breath and generational healing. So your brain, I want you to see your brain as a bilateral transducer, like a computer processing software system, like a computer processing system, because the software is actually your subconscious mind, as I'll show you and share with you here in a moment. But it's basically a quantum processor. And what this means is that your brain doesn't just process information linearly. So like that's why the healing journey is not linear. It operates basically at a quantum level. So it deals with probabilities and potentials rather than fixed realities. It's constantly like translating energy and information between your inner world and the external environment that you're living, right? Now, think about compound interest. Okay, so when you get a loan, like a mortgage or car loan or whatever, there's a compound interest that gets added up that you owe, right? The interest compounds over time and it grows exponentially based on the contract. This is also very, very similar to transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. You all know that I've talked a lot about epigenetics here in our podcast episode. There's several podcast episodes dedicated just to that if you want to go learn more about the science of epigenetics. But in essence, we need to understand that our DNA doesn't carry only genetic information, it actually holds emotional imprints, emotions, and trauma responses from up to 14 generations back, they're saying now. I know it in Kundalini Yoga, 7 generations. And the reason that it is because when we heal ourselves, we heal 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. So that's the 14. But just as this compound interest accumulates, these emotional patterns from your ancestors, they also build up over generations. And so what is happening is that your brain is continuously processing and interpreting this inherited information all day. Can you believe that? It thinks it's acting on your best interest, your brain, and it tries to protect you based on not just what you experience, but what your ancestors experience. But here's where it gets fascinating. And this is why the future is so quantum. So, consciousness, your awareness of the present moment, it's non local. What does this mean? This means that you're not confined to your brain or even to your body. You talk about quantum leaping, talk about interdimensional travel. Our brother Jesus Christ could do it. We all can do it. Our ancestors, the Egyptians, it can be proven because you could be in your bed and you wake up, post-traumatic stress disorder, you're remembering the trauma that you went through as a child or whenever that happened, and your body doesn't know you're not there. So what does your body start to do? Your brain wants to protect you from this trauma that happened 20 years ago, but it's not happening now, but it doesn't know that. So if it's trying to protect you, what does it do? It starts secreting adrenaline, it starts secreting cortisol, and now you believe you're in that same situation, even though you're in your bed, completely safe and covered in a blanket. That's what that means. So if consciousness is and our awareness are non-local, this means that it's not confined to our brains or bodies. And because science is finally catching up to this ancient wisdom, we are now proving what is known as quantum entanglement. Basically, particles can instantaneously affect each other, regardless of the distance, time. What this means is that there's an interconnectedness of all things. That's why your ancestors are not, they're still here. They're a frequency. They're they're literally a sound within the universe, and they're that energy will never be completely demolished, especially if you continue to engage with them. So what does this mean for you? That you can transmute and transcend any of these generational patterns in an instant, in non-locality, from infinity to infinity. No matter what lifetime you're living, you have access to infinite possibilities. Again, why when we heal ourselves, we heal 7 generations before and after us, because your brain only knows what it's aware of. So you need to consciously direct it to look for new information or to challenge its negative programming, its negative biases. It's like ChatGPT or artificial intelligence. You're asking it questions and it's giving you an answer based on how it was programmed. That's your brain too. So it gives you feedback based on what it already knows. And then it tries to protect you. So it creates outcomes on how you should behave because it thinks that's best for you. So you're in bed, you're worried about your post-traumatic or you're worried about something that happened in the past. That's how it protects you. It gives you adrenaline and cortisol so that you can fight and flight. Unfortunately, that might lead to alcohol abuse or something else to keep you away from this uh, this challenge or this struggle that's not even real because it happened in the past. But the good news is that you can reprogram this. You can reprogram your DNA, and it starts with reprogramming your brain. How? By introducing new information, new sounds, mantra, chanting or breath. We're going to talk about that today. So your ancestors, let's say grandma went through World War II and she experienced a lot of trauma back then. Her emotions that she experienced live in your DNA. And your nervous system, your brain, your DNA is impacted by, of course, your environment, conditioning program, and your experiences, but also your ancestral experience. So your brain is the hardware, it's the processing system, and your subconscious is the software, the processing information, which helps your nervous system then create your reality. Because what you think about, what you fear, that's the reality feedback that you're constantly working with and interacting with, and that shapes your experiences. Now, here's the exciting part. When you change the subconscious programming through breath, through meditation, we're going to talk about this right now, your processor starts working with a different set of thought systems, and it also becomes more agile. Generational trauma creates the brain to become dysfunctional. It doesn't work the same way it used to. So guess what? You change the subconscious mind, you change the program, you change the way it tries to protect you all the time. And this is how you change your reality. You're not just thinking different thoughts, you're fundamentally alerting how your quantum processor, your brain, interacts with the universe. So how do we do this then? Well, this is where breath comes in, because breath is the bridge to accessing and altering these quantum states. When we breathe consciously, we're not just taking in air, we're creating an opportunity for deep quantum level change. That's why your nervous system, as metaphysically, is represented by consciousness. So if you have a regulated nervous system, if you've been through emotional trauma, if you're living under chronic stress, your nervous system is not regulated, and you cannot live in the present moment. It's very, very difficult. So when we integrate breath, a big part of Kundalini yoga meditation is breath work. Many of the meditations that we use in Kundalini yoga include breath. So when you introduce breath, you're creating this opportunity for quantum level change at the level of the subconscious mind. Because what happens with breath in Kundalini yoga is that it helps rewire your brain and it rewires your nervous system. And what that does is that now it's allowing you to access these quantum states more easily, where you're aware and you're not the emotion. You might be having an emotion, but you're aware of the emotion and you're the watcher of the emotion. That's what happens when we practice these specific breathing techniques. We're not just relaxing, we're actively engaging with the quantum field of possibilities. Isn't that amazing? And there's so many different breath meditations we've practiced. Right now, Satori, Vitality and Spirituality, and the Sovereign Sisterhood Academy, my 2 programs are closed for enrollment, but you can always join us in our free private Facebook group community, the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement. And in there, every month I share with you a specific meditation, Kundalini yoga meditation, and way more teachings, of course, on generational healing. In fact, this week, we're going to talk more about the breath as the bridge for healing generational neglect and things of that nature. And we're actually practicing a meditation in there in our community. So you can join us by clicking on the link below, and there you'll also be notified when we do open enrollment for the academy and for Satori. But in essence, there are so many different sequences that they're created in a specific order in order to give you a specific result. Like one of the ones that I love to teach, and this is one that I actually share in my academy, in the group coaching program for generational healing. In the private Facebook group, we do practice a meditation, so you can join us over there to practice. Today, I'm just going to share with you this meditation that is very, very powerful, breath meditation. And what I love about this meditation is not only does it give you stress relief and clears the emotion of the past, but it specifically deals with the phobias that are developed, the neurosis, the fears, especially as it relates to our parents. So it can really help with past family issues and removes these unsettling thoughts from the past that surface into the present. And it can take really difficult situations in the present and release them into the hands of infinity. That's exactly what we're talking about here. This meditation it's called the stress relief in clearing the emotions of the past. But I love this meditation because of its simplicity. You're literally just sitting on a chair. This is great before a meeting, great before anytime you're going to go in, especially have a deep conversation. And you're just sitting in easy pose or on the chair, and you're placing your hands at the center of the chest with the tips of the thumbs touching. They're touching each other, and you're leaving that space between the palms. The fingertips are pointed upwards, and you're placing the hands at the center of the chest. You're looking at the tip of the nose and your breath. This is the most important part. This is basically a 5 seconds inhale through the nose as you're looking at the tip of the nose, and then 5 seconds you're going to hold the breath in, and then you're going to exhale for 5 seconds through the nose. So you continue that breath cycle. So the way that it looks is you're looking at the tip of the nose. I'm inhaling through the nose 5 seconds, holding it 5 seconds, and releasing it 5 seconds, and then starting again. Very simple. It's minimum 3 minutes long. Don't go more than 31 minutes. If you're a newbie to Kundalini Yoga, 3 minutes. Be consistent for 40 days, because that's where we have measured the gray matter of the brain as it starts to dissolve, as it starts to really change, which means the subconscious mind is changing. So this meditation is simple. It includes breath, and it allows you to rewire the brain and make it a faster processing system so that you can really understand which ones are your emotions and then which is basically a generational pattern that you're stuck under. Because typically that's what we're working with. So practice that meditation and then join us also in our free private Facebook group community, the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement, which I'll link below here, where we're going to go deeper about this subject matter in meditation, about this breath and meditation and how to rewire the brain so it could create instant changes to patterns, while at the same time we're going to work to understand this more scientifically. So join us there. I go live every Wednesday at 9 a.m. over there for this live healing session. And we're going to dive a lot deeper into these quantum concepts and just this technique to actually be able to disrupt the pattern. Amazing, just amazing. So now that we've also looked at this week's generational healing, we've seen how powerful our breath can be in our rewiring our brains from these patterns of generational wounding. Now let's turn to the wisdom of the tarot for this week's ancestral guidance so that we can apply these insights into our lives. The more that I study the tarot and the more that I use it, the more that I reflect on just how accurate it is and how incredibly powerful it is to understand ourselves and the world. I mean, these are basically self-realization tools, just the way astrology is, just the way that Kundalini yoga is, just the way that A Course in Miracles spiritual psychotherapy is. They are basically tools that God has given to us here in this incarnation so that we can understand and better know ourselves. And this week's guidance is just so true to the energies of the astrology, as well as what I'm talking about here, to be able to change your brain in order to change your patterns. The first card that came up in the immediate past is the Ten of Coins, or Ten of Pentacles, some of us know it. So the 10 is, as it is, it's a closing of a cycle. And with the 10 of coins, this is some kind of completion of a material cycle where you've learned how to attain true wealth and security. That's why with Mars being in Cancer, you don't have to worry anymore. Even though the lunar eclipse might be making you feel triggered about this, what this card is saying is that you have come into this completion period where there's fulfillment, the end of a cycle where there's an end of financial struggle and you've entered into financial stability. There's career success. There's long-term relationship success. So this is the creation of a lasting legacy that you've been working on that now can be passed down through generations. In the card, as you can see, there's a gentleman surrounded by his family. They're abundant in food, in joy, and in love. That's what your immediate past has been. You being devoted and committed to this inner work to create this lasting legacy. So this card is all about the importance of family structures, of traditions, of your ancestral wisdom too. Because the ancestors didn't just leave us karma or bad patterns, right? This is the card that signifies achievement of long-term goals and creating a solid foundation. Mars and Cancer. That's what we're working on in order for this eclipse season to come through, where we feel grounded in who we truly are. So this can have to do with maybe some kind of family business or inheritance matters. But in either case, there's this abundance mindset. There's now you entering into a period of enjoying your fruits of labor and feeling accomplished. This is all about highlighting the importance of creating sustainable system for long-term prosperity. That's the era you're entering into. So because you work so hard on that, on stability, on foundation, the King of Cups is in the immediate present. And this is the card of emotional maturity, masculinity being used wisely, not overused. This is about you mastering your emotions. So high levels of emotional intelligence. Because you went through all this, you're able to now navigate these complex feelings. So what we're being guided now is to remain in this calm and balanced way of living that we've earned because of our inner work, even in turbulent emotional waters. That outer world does not dictate what is going on in here. That's sovereignty. So this is a period you're entering where there's a lot more compassion, there's more understanding. It's like you're entering into this week where you're like putting the puzzle pieces together of your past. You're also more than likely entering into a role as a healer, some type of healer, a mentor, a therapist, a spiritual guide for others. Because now you're using the wisdom and then all the generosity of God to share it with others. So this is a blend of logic and intuition in making decisions and suggesting a lot of leadership, that you're coming from both a mental but from a heart center, but you're also very, very compassionate and intuitive. So this is all about needing to approach current situations with heart and head, and the ability for us to create harmony in relationships and especially in social situations. So we earn this because of the work that we've been doing on regulating our nervous system, on rewiring our brain through the inner work of Kundalini Yoga meditation, Course in Miracles, spiritual psychotherapy, the shadow work that you've been doing. So in the immediate future, from these two frequencies, we now get the Hangman upright as well. And guess what? The Hangman is a representation of surrender. Full surrender, because the Hangman can really symbolize suspension. In this deck, which I love, it is represented by Quetzalcoatl being upside down. Quetzalcoatl was he is the serpent god of the Mayan. But why he's upside down in this reflection is because he's basically showing us how this whole world is upside down. And in the Hangman situation, either you suspend, you slow down, you stop what you're doing or whatever, you were basically slowing down to gain new perspectives, or suspending what you're doing. Because if you don't do it willingly, that's what the card is telling us. Do it voluntarily before you're forced through a bulldozer method, through the Tower card, which is like something challenging happening where now you're being forced. You've been through a lot of changes. This is a new era. It feels so different to you. You're almost asking like, is this real or is this too good to be true? My stable foundation, my emotional maturity. So in the future, what this is saying is that the reason you're here and the reason this happened is because you've learned to surrender to God. You've learned to release control. The only way, ladies, that we can learn to surrender to God and release control is through a regulated nervous system and a wired, agile brain, and that's through the inner work. So you have learned how to do that. And because of that, now you need to let go of these old patterns and beliefs and attachments. And you do that by surrendering the control. That's where you're going to be led to beautiful, unexpected wisdom, especially during this eclipse portal. So this is a great period of gestation where unseen changes are taking place. It's about valuing meditation, reflection, and connection with higher consciousness. That's the whole Pisces vibe for this full moon lunar eclipse. So what do we have to do? We got to release our martyrdom and think that we ever have to self-sacrifice for a greater cause. God doesn't need us to do that. We got to look at current obstacles as opportunities for spiritual advancement. That's why you need to surrender so that you don't respond like you've always responded before. I got to take control of the situation. That's not what got you to emotional maturity and a strong foundation. In fact, what got you here is because you trusted in a higher power. So surrendering, what you're doing now is God is like, you need to continue to do that because now you're opening yourself up to receive guidance and inspiration. So through together, I mean, I don't make this stuff up. It's just so dead on. It's about personal evolution, moving from material success to emotional mastery, calling for a profound spiritual surrender. In the past, we completed a significant cycle in our material world. That was my whole lesson of 2008 to 2024 when the real estate market crashed and I was a young investor. That is what led me to my spiritual awakening. And that's what this week is like closing up for us. We've established a strong foundation for ourselves and our family. We're creating a legacy. We've reached a point of a crossroads of material completion. And now we can focus on sharing our abundance and wisdom with others. And because the King of Cups came up in the present, we've developed a high level of emotional intelligence and maturity. And in the Hangman in the future, now we're being called for the significant shift in perspective, where we don't have to be hustlers, sell ourselves out. All we got to do is trust, serve with an open heart, no barriers, no protection needed. But understanding that at the end of this cycle and there's a beginning of this new one, and to fully transition to it, you must surrender your current way of thinking and being. Oh my goodness. Woo. The sage over here is came at the right time. So we are progressing. We have to remember that the surrender that we're being asked to do right now is voluntarily. You're not being forced. You're being invited to willingly step into this new perspective, to surrender your need for control and to trust in the higher wisdom of the universe. I can't tell you how this has been our theme. That's all we've been talking about. One of the books that has really influenced my life, and it came in at the right time, of course, is The Surrender Experiment, written by Michael Singer. He also wrote another book called The Untethered Soul. That one's way more famous and popular. I've never even read that one. I can even imagine how good that one must be too. But I highly suggest, ladies, that it's on audio, so you can even get it in this week before the full moon eclipse in Pisces. That book will change your life. And in fact, it will show you just how much you already are being guided by God. And with this Pisces being so shamanic and psychic, perfect book to read right before we get to these very beautiful times. So ultimately, we're all combining our material success, our emotional intelligence, and our willingness to surrender to spiritual guidance so that we can be positioned for this profound transformation that's happening, whether you like it or not. My goodness, there was so much here. The last thing that I'll say is to trust in the process, to allow yourself to be suspended in this moment of change, and to remain open to the new insights and opportunities that will emerge as a result of your surrender. So, in this podcast episode, we've talked about the astrology of the week, Mars, Cancer's influence on this upcoming full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. We've talked about generational healing and how breath becomes the bridge to the brain and how that happens. And we've also talked about this week's ancestral guidance, which is showing us the magic and power of surrender if we really are willing to end these old cycles and to begin new ones. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for joining us in our movement of generational healing. Thank you for you. Thank you for showing up as the truth, as who you are, and expect the kingdom to fully be bestowed upon you, because that's what happens when you break the cycles. So, of course, if you found value in this episode, take a moment to like it, to share it, to subscribe. Your support helps us reach so many more sisters that are also ready to break generational patterns and step into their power. And also, one of the things that I recently created that I want to invite you to download is very excited about these cards. I've been for a while wanting to create generational healing affirmation cards, and they're finally birthed in here. So you're the first ones to know about this, but in essence, these are 22 affirmation cards that you can use digitally, or you can print them out if you like as well too. And they're complimentary. You can download them on my website, veronicaberriganiam.com/affirmation cards. And basically, these 22 cards are designed to support your generational healing journey. Each card shows a specific generational pattern, karmic, that we repeat. So it's awesome to wake up in the morning, pick a card to see what's coming up for you intuitively that day. And then it gives you an affirmation, a Course in Miracles quote that supports that affirmation, and then a Kundalini yoga meditation teaching that also supports that generational karmic pattern. So this is something that I've been wanting to create for a long time, that I finally birthed it right before the eclipse. So make sure you go download those affirmation cards. They are complimentary, no fee, unless you wanted to go print them yourself, then you would pay for that yourself. But you can also use them digitally by scanning through them and picking one randomly, or you can go through them day 1 through day 22 to understand them. So check them out by going to veronicaberriganiam.com/affirmation cards. Very easy to find them. And overall, I just want us to remember that with each breath, we all have the power to transform not just our life, but the lives of generations to come. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting. Feel free to post any of your questions here below in the comment sections. I do read them and I respond to them within 24 hours. Until next time, beautiful Sovereign Sisters, keep breathing, keep healing, and keep shining your authentic light. I will see you all again next week.